You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville. This week, Domino, the one where the crew of the Orville listen to Fats Domino while eating dominoes while playing dominoes. We'll discuss the meanings, morals, and messages and see how it stacks up against the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. My name is Mike Richards.
Are you sure that's what the episode was about?
I think that's what it was about.
All right, I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. Please share your thoughts, ideas, and tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or email us at missionlog-theorville@roddenberry.com. If you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, hit like and subscribe. And remember, we just might use your comments in an upcoming episode.
Regarding Midnight Blue, Heather Gillum wrote on Twitter, "Thank you for another great show. You two bring it every week. Dance hands, star eyes, teary eyes, heart and heart hands. You are the Andy Cohen of the Orville, the talking dead, on the pulse, poignant with the spirit and soul of the show. Great quotes, great comparisons, insight, the whole bit. 50,000 thumbs up. This comment made my day."
I saw your response to it. She's very enthusiastic and I think a newer follower of ours. Anyway, she's awesome. I want to give us the flip version of that, Mike. I was looking at our reviews on Apple Podcasts, and someone says that we should leave our politics out of this. And
We got that one. It said, who doesn't want more mission log? But you and I, we have a liberal agenda or liberal politics. We should leave out of it.
Something like that. Now, first of all, people, I don't know if you know, reviewing and putting a star on our podcast, even if you don't like it, does help us. So thank you for going to the trouble and reviewing and telling us that you don't like our politics. But I think I'm a little biased about how awesome I am. I think that while it's clear we're both on the left-leaning side of things, we do propose other thoughts and have shared, not been afraid to disagree with each other, have been able to be open to other ideas. I argue that if you say that we shouldn't have politics in the show, which is, by the way, about a show that's very political to begin with, you're the one being closed-minded because you don't want to be challenged to your thought. That's my argument. But I also appreciate their criticism.
I do. All feedback is good feedback.
Even if it's the wrong feedback.
Yeah, there's positive and negative. There's useful and not useful, as I learned from a good friend of mine. So feedback that's useful, whether it's positive or negative, is valued. And I am also quite biased as to how awesome you are. So we have that in common.
Oh, that's so nice. Anyway, Mike, I think it's time for you to recap this week's episode.
Domino. Prologue. A Moclan delegation visits Teleia in the Krill capital of Dalekos. The Moclans want to form an alliance, Moclan weapons for Krill protection. Two great militaries against the Kaylon and any other union of planets that they might find troublesome. Great, but who will lead? According to the Moclans, they would, of course. Leadership by a female would be offensive to the Moclans. Man, do they have balls or what? Teleia makes a counteroffer, co-leadership or no deal. The Moclans have to confer with their people as we head to the opening credits. Surrounding Teleia, a Union fleet is forming a defense against the Kaylon, while Isaac and Charlie work on a device in engineering. As the Kaylon attack the Union ships, Ed orders Isaac to initiate as a massive pulse emanates from the Orville, destroying all of the Kaylon ships. The crew looks on in utter dismay as Ed and Kelly slowly rise from their command chairs and walk closer to the view screen to survey the damage. When Isaac asks if they were successful, a distraught Ed answers, "Yes, you could say that." Back on Earth, Admirals Perry, Halsey, and Ozawa compliment Isaac and Charlie on their ability to create such a weapon. Isaac explains that the weapon works by attacking the Kaylon network. Attack one Kaylon, and you knock them all down like, that's right, dominoes. Isaac won't be affected since he's no longer part of their network. Furthermore, a bigger power source means virtually unlimited range. That would have been a good time to say unlimited power!
Unlimited power!
The conversation turns to the possibility of eradicating all Kaylon. Charlie agrees enthusiastically, but Ed asks if they're being a little too cavalier in their approach. After all, aren't they talking about committing genocide? Kelly points out that the Kaylon capacity to grow and learn has been proven. Admiral Halsey, ever the voice of reason, says it's not their decision anyway. It's up to the Union Council to make the decision, and there's nothing they can do about it. Back on the Orville, John, Charlie, Gordon, and Tala discuss the pluses and minuses of genocide. John and Tala are against, while Charlie and Gordon are pro, showing us that the Union is likely divided on the subject. In the conference room, Admiral Halsey shares the Council's decision that the weapon will be used as a deterrent. The Orville will travel to Kaylon to demonstrate the nature of the device and give the Kaylon an opportunity to agree to a ceasefire. Approaching Kaylon, the Orville is met by so many Kaylon vessels. The weapon is ready as Admiral Halsey implores the Kaylon to stand down. As the Kaylon attack the Orville, Ed orders the use of the weapon, destroying the attacking ships. Getting the attention of Kaylon Primary, the Orville is allowed to land and discuss their terms. The Union demands are simple. Stop the hostility against the Union and stop trying to eradicate the biologicals. Kaylon Primary asks the Union if they will enslave them, and without missing a beat, the answer is no. We simply want to find a way to peacefully coexist. Why? Because the Union believes that the quality of mercy is the mightiest in the mightiest. With no defense against the weapon, the Kaylon agree, but not without throwing some serious shade at Isaac and promising to find a weakness in the weapon. The gang, celebrating at Kelly's cabin, are entertained by Gordon and Charlie performing an acoustic version of Simon and Garfunkel's Flowers Never Bend with the Rainfall. As congratulations, ancient rum, walnuts, astronomy lessons, and moral quandaries are shared. Meanwhile, 32 levels underneath Union Central, Lieutenant Shady Pants breaks into the facility where the device was being kept, helped by an accomplice on the inside. Making quick work of their escape, a shuttle is seen going to Quantum just in time for Admiral Halsey to break the bad news to Kelly and Claire. The shuttle with the stolen device rendezvous with Moclan and Krill ships delivered by Admiral Perry. He believes the Kaylon will inevitably find a way to render the device obsolete and want the newly formed alliance to get the Kaylon while the getting's good. Returning to Earth to turn himself in, Talea orders the destruction of Admiral Perry's shuttle. Following the shuttle's trail, Bordas detects the weapon signatures of Moclan and Krill vessels. He surmises that the Moclans will seek the help of Dr. Kalba on Draconis 427, as he's the most brilliant weapons scientist available. Sadly, Draconis 427 is extremely well defended, while hosting a quantum core large enough to use the device to destroy all Kaylon within 10,000 light-years. Knowing when to ask for help, the Orville contacts Kaylon Primary to work together and either recover or disable the weapon. The Kaylon and the Union will attack the Moclans and Krill in orbit, while a squadron of pterodons, that's right,
Yay!
Pterodons, led by John and Gordon, provide cover for the Go team of Kelly, Tala, Isaac, Charlie, and Kaylon Primary as they infiltrate the facility and make sure the weapon isn't used. An epic space battle ensues as the Go team makes its way to the surface, accompanied by the Pterodons. With the shuttle damaged, the team uses their egress packs to, egress the shuttle Rocketeer style and backdoor their way into the facility. The team fights their way through the Moclan facility as Charlie, Isaac, and Kaylon Primary make their way to the weapon. With the weapon armed and no way to stop it, Charlie tries frantically to find a solution. Meanwhile, Kelly, separated from Tala, is ambushed by Talea. Looking like she's about to be a gift for Avis, Tala provides a well-timed blow to Talea's big krill head, proving that krill heads are way tougher than John Lamar's. Kelly, catching up with the rest of the team, learn that the only way Charlie can destroy the weapon is to overload the quantum core. destroying the outpost and a good chunk of the planet, and Charlie will have to do it manually, leaving her to sacrifice herself. The team takes off in a Krill shuttle, but not before Kaylon Primary looks back, silently questioning the nature of Charlie's decision. Moments later, Charlie's eyes reflect the overloading quantum core as she utters the words, "I'm here, Amanda." Safely aboard the Orville, Kaylon Primary asks, "The biological terminated her existence, but why?" "To save you," Kelly answered, "because they are not like the biologicals that created us," added Isaac. Kaylon Primary admits that they may have been incorrect in their assessment of the biologicals. Looks like the door may be open for peace after all. In the brig, Ed tells Talea that she will be charged with war crimes. He offers to provide a good home for Anaya. She refuses, stating that the fulfillment of a divine purpose eclipses all family bonds. At Union Central, the Kaylon are offered provisional membership in the Union. They agree that while a representative democracy is inefficient, as Admiral Halsey puts it, all other forms of government are inferior. At Charlie's memorial service, Isaac is the first to speak. In the final seconds of her life, Charlie substantiated her true nature, one of integrity and sacrifice. And in her sacrifice, she inspired the enemies of the Union to become friends. Her existence was brief, but much like the first domino in succession, her impact will be felt far into the future. The end.
Thank you, Mike. That was a gigantic episode to recap. I thought I had it hard in Midnight Blue last week.
I think this one was, I think there was a lot of action and a lot of minutes that were didn't necessarily drive the plot. So I think you actually probably had more to talk about in Midnight Blue.
I did keep out for that exact reason, the chase between the shuttle and the Moclan shuttles after they get Topa, because it's just too much, right? But yes, you're totally right. Like, you can go, they're destroyed, moving on, or whatever.
And we've been trying to keep the recaps to about the same length that we had with 45-minute episodes. Even this one came in at about an hour and 18. It was the second longest one after Midnight Blue, which was an hour and 27.
Amazing.
So very, very long episodes. So far, with the show only being out for about a week, it's got a 9.4 on IMDb, which is the highest above Identity Part 1, I believe.
Yeah, and
of the entire series.
I was just looking at IMDb too, and it's at Movie Meter 23, which is not bad. It's not the highest it's ever been at for the show either, but I think what we're seeing are enough people talking about it, enough water cooler around the internet is positive, and people are going, I guess I'll watch this. And then if you drop in this week to see this episode, or if you've caught up in order to get to this episode, you really got a treat.
Yeah, and I read a Forbes article today that said, I guess everyone was right about the Orville, was what it was titled. That showed up on my one of my social media feeds. And yeah, it was a guy that reviews pop culture for Forbes. And he was like, yeah, they were right. The show's awesome. And this one in particular, and we have, Andre Bormanis, friend of the show, Brandon Braga, we haven't had on here yet, hopefully in a future supplemental. Really, really pleased with the quality of the episodes that those two have been putting out. Because they did Midnight Blue,
right,
which we kind of knew right away that some stuff's going to go down when these two folks write it.
Right.
And in this one as well, we had Andre Bormanis and Brandon Braga as the writing team. John Casarlane as the director on this one, co-directed mostly with Seth.
Mick Casarlane?
Sure. Yeah, Jeff.
Mick Casarlane, yeah.
Nice. And music for only the second time this in New Horizons, I believe, by Kevin Koska.
And they killed it.
Yeah. And then with a credit I hadn't seen before, it said with additional music by John Debney, because he was responsible for the arrangement of Flowers Never Bend in the Rainfall by Simon and Garfunkel. Which I said acoustic version, but did Simon and Garfunkel ever do anything not acoustic? I don't think they ever had a jam band.
Well, I mean, Mrs. Robinson, right? I mean, I still think it's acoustic, but
ish.
I am not going to say something that I don't know to be true. Definitely a lot of acoustic and a lot of acapella or harmony.
Yeah. Simon and Garfunkel is very. I'm sure they did things that were not acoustic, but it has a very acoustic flavor about it.
There are reasons that Simon left Garfunkel in the wind and why Garfunkel never got over it. So, and primarily it's, I'm sure, electric guitar. So
yeah, probably is. We had Graham Hamilton back as Kaylon primary. Mm-hmm. Kai Wenner and BJ Tanner making appearances. Nick Chinland, we haven't talked about him before, but he played the Krill Captain Dalek, and he's been around, since season 1, I believe. The episode Krill. This will be fast work, that guy, because he just has a very sort of old school commanding presence. Like when I first started out in the airline industry and I was flying with guys that were, Vietnam vets and, folks of, that certain age, they kind of had that same sort of grizzled way about them. And to me, it was kind of, I'm glad I'm not, necessarily under somebody like that's command. But it did bring back there's a certain sort of confidence. No, there's just a certain confidence and presence and just I like my commanders to be in command and feel like they are sort of the masters of their domain, so to speak.
Sure.
Lisa Baines is back. Monty Pullum as Topa. Michaela McManus, who we've raved about on this show before, and Ren T. Brown was back as Commander Codon. We saw him last week.
Right.
And I had to look up a word.
I'm so glad you did this. Because by context clues, I think I understood it. But
sure.
I've also misunderstood plenty of word because I thought context I had it correct.
Yeah.
So
we all know you have the best vocabulary among the two of us. But I heard Isaac describe the Big Dipper as being an asterism in the constellation Ursa Major. So I thought, okay, so that's probably like a little chunk of a constellation, like a little piece of one, right? So the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper are both, they're called that euphemistically, and they're both part of the constellations Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Mm-hmm. But an asterism is a term in astronomy, a prominent pattern or group of stars, typically having a popular name but smaller than a constellation.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's where that came from. And another little bit of trivia: when Bortus sensed the Moclan and Krill weapons signatures, and Kelly looked right at Isaac and said, "Verify that." I was like, "Aw, doesn't anybody trust Bortus?"
I know. It was again a real Worf situation.
Yeah,
Worf, we're not doing that. Is he an idiot?
But kind of a big deal. I guess you want to double verify it, and
Verificate.
Two source verification. That's
right.
That's the thing.
Tufa, got it.
And Ed said, it's the Molotov-Ribbentrop all over again. And I was like, well, that sounds like something I should have heard about in history class. It was a non-aggression pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union that they pretty much cut up made a side deal that they would partition Poland between the two of them. So within a certain time period of this pact being signed, Germany invaded Poland, and then so did the USSR. Not shortly thereafter. And as most of you know, during World War II, it did not last because they were the fiercest of enemies during World War II. So yeah, that was the Molotov-Ribbentrop.
It's pretty deep cut, Ed Mercer. Although we do know that Ed Mercer has some reverence for the 21st and 20th century.
And this is placed. This is episode 9. Mm-hmm. The novella, The Orville Sympathy for the Devil, was positioned as episode 8.5.
Right.
I did listen to that on audiobook the other day. It's available on, wherever I got mine on Audible.
Right.
But it's available wherever you get audiobooks. And I listened to it. It's about a little over 3 hours long. And it is narrated by Bruce. I believe his official middle name is effing Boxleitner. And it was fantastic. So I could see how there would be some prior knowledge of World War II possibly associated with that episode. For those of you who care to dig into that,
that's great. That's amazing. Hey, I acknowledged that you just did all that really well.
Acknowledged. It went on. I think it went on for about. It was kind of like their version of like Red 5 standing by.
Yeah,
Red leader standing by. Red 5 standing by. Red 3 standing by.
It was 100.
Acknowledged.
In some ways, it was just kind of cool to hear. Like, yes, everyone has heard this, and they're all agreeing to go to their death. Mm-hmm. But also, like, what are we doing here? I acknowledge also that this episode is a Star Wars. This episode is, Brandon Braga said at the panel at Comic-Con that he believes that this show has the best VFX on TV to date. And he says, before this episode came out, the best is yet to come. And he was so correct in that assessment. And so... all I could think, even when they see the planet where the quantum core is, that looked like the Death Star a little bit, and then
it kind of looked like Starkiller Base. Mm-hmm. Right, and I know you saw episode 7, and we talked about that not too long ago. Spoiled for you, if I remember right.
No, wait, you didn't spoil episode 7 for me.
No, but you said you Twitter spoiled it yourself.
Oh, I sure did ruin that for myself. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly right. I'm going to be honest, as I was watching certain promos leading up to the last couple of episodes, when you just see a ton of Union starships, I'm like, that looks really cluttered. What are we doing? Why are there so many ships?
Yeah, so you're talking about they never said it. So Talea said that Saleya would be one of the first planets attacked, and I saw those gorgeous rings around the planet, and the large moons, and I kind of made the assumption that was Saleya that they were.
Oh, it sure was. They even said they did. Say
they did. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I saw the ship sort of backing up like tail to tail to tail, and all I was thinking, and this is more of a Chris Berman Sports Center reference, where he'd always say, "Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills."
What does that mean?
Oh, it just means defend themselves. Keep from getting blown out or come back if they're in a tough situation.
Gotcha.
And I was just thinking, nobody circles the wagons like the Union fleet.
That was actually, it was kind of cool to see how strategic that was. Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm trying to say is when you just see like a shot of like 700 Orville ships.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was incredulous, but I was a little skeptical. But they've really justified having these space fights and multiple ships in one shot. Like, because to go back to Star Wars, yes, there's TIE fighters and there's like in space fighting and on planet fighting. Mm-hmm. But some of the criticism that the first 3 episodes drew was too much. Like there's too much fighting on screen. So I was skeptical that they were going to toe that line incorrectly. I think they towed it just perfectly and earned it. And we saw everything we needed to see, and they didn't give us like hyper fast cuts, which is another technique that they did in the 2000s to like hide what was really happening with explosions and stuff like that. We just got to see some really great.
It sounds a lot like Transformers 2, the second one.
We are not here to disparage Michael Bay, although I will do it any day. Any day.
Well, keeping the Seth MacFarlane connection going, I just watched 3 directors the other day on the Family Guy episode.
Oh, okay.
where they were episodes the same story directed by Wes Anderson, Michael Bay.
Yep.
And I'm drawing a blank right now. But so much fun.
It's what a clever way to do an episode for sure. Especially when you've been on for as many seasons as that, you've got to get clever.
Oh yeah, and I just did guest appearance on the Sci-Fi Sanctuary. Matt Comagis with Matt and Luke, and we talked about Armageddon, which was early Michael Bay. So you kind of see the proto Michael Bay techniques that were going on.
I guess I should be careful. There's some things that Michael Bay did, and then he became a parody of himself. And the same thing could be said of Wes Anderson, whom I love. So, like, even I have theories, and it's such a digression from what we're talking about, but like you get the raw version of someone's work, and then you get the distillation, the perfect version of their work, and then they start becoming a parody of themselves. Not Danny Elfman. Who's the guy who he works with? That friggin' guy. You know, Beetlejuice. No, Beetlejuice.
Oh, Michael Keaton?
No. But yes, he's in that. The director,
Okay.
Tim Burton.
Oh, so Tim Burton. Oh, yeah.
So you have like Beetlejuice, like it's like raw and amazing, but then you have like the perfect distillation, or even have like Scissorhands. It's raw, but then you get Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's the perfection of the genre.
Right,
or you know, you get Rushmore, Bottle Rockets out of Wes Anderson, and then you get Royal Tenenbaums, and it's perfect. And then it starts like becoming a parody of itself. But also, they've honed their own version and vision, and so it can go good or bad. And Michael Bay really has a style, is what I will say.
It really does. And a couple things to circle back to. Quentin Tarantino was the third director, along with Wes Anderson and Michael Bay. So that was fantastically done.
Amazing.
And also the that Star Wars skit from Family Guy where Luke, finds that Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru are dead, and then John Williams is dead, and they had to do the rest of the film with Danny Elfman's music. So, and I remember telling the story on an earlier version. I drew a blank on Danny Elfman's name.
That's right.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because now, for our long-term listeners, they'll finally have that loop closed up for them.
You have closed the timeline, and I'm really grateful.
And we're trying to wrap these all these open plot holes up in the last couple of episodes.
I don't blame you.
Of New Horizons.
I don't blame you. So something I found interesting is remember when you had said that there were, I think they said 3 actresses that were pregnant during the time of filming.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have noticed this if you hadn't shared that information, but Talia is sitting a lot in this episode. She stands, but she's sitting and there's something kind of cool about that visually, where that she doesn't need to stand for a man who walks in the room. She doesn't need to stand to command. But that got my mind ticking, thinking, I wonder if she's a little bit pregnant. And I did look on Michaela McManus's IMDb, and it says that their third child, daughter Indigo Irene Daniels, was born May 12th, 2021. So more than likely she was
right in there.
Either having some sort of sickness or something or other.
A lot of COVID babies running around.
This is true. It's one day after
Meester.
my birthday.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Leighton Meester was pregnant. Jessica Zor, I follow her
wow.
Instagram, and she's got a picture of a wee little baby who's running around, kind of about a year old. So I think that might be another, because I think there was a line delivered by Kaylon Primary that I questioned. Is when they were getting ready to jump out of the shuttle. Right, because they didn't have landing thrusters. They were going to have to take power away from something else to get them back, and they were like, "Nah, let's just jump out." And Kaylon said, "At our current altitude of 5,000 meters above the ground, we will need to reach terminal velocity before we initiate reverse thrust." I think the words "need to" might not have should have been in there.
Okay.
Because terminal velocity is when you're falling and you accelerate, and then the wind resistance kind of starts to equal the acceleration of gravity, so that your velocity just stabilizes. So if you were to throw something off the Empire State Building, eventually it would go faster and faster and faster until the wind resistance kind of equaled the pull of gravity, and then it would just be going at the same speed. A constant speed, and that's called terminal velocity.
Okay.
And that could be different, with a pointy object that has less wind resistance than like a blunt object. But I think what Kaylon Primary was saying was, at our current altitude of 5,000 meters above the ground, we will reach terminal velocity before we initiate reverse thrust. And that kind of makes a little bit more sense at that point, when Charlie just said, "Just hit the button before you hit the ground." And that was kind of a badass moment when she just kind of like flopped out of the shuttle like that.
It was actually very cool. I thought it was a nice subtle nod to JJ's when they're all flying down out of the ship too. Even though I know it's nothing to do with Star Trek, but
right. So
they're
you had
flying
that
around
scene.
in that
There's that, and then like all the Mission Impossible stuff where they just kind of flop out of airplanes. And...
I'm just going to say, though, to your credit, I actually understand less what Kaylon Primary was trying to do now, and I just felt like he was trying to be like, I'm the smart one, and she's like, so am I.
Don't overcomplicate it, man. Just hit the button before you hit the ground.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
I think, so I just took it as, we're going to be going really, really fast, before we can initiate reverse thrust. She's like, just hit the button before you hit the ground, you'll be fine. And I thought that was pretty cool. Do you notice the similarities? But I guess Moclans have pretty standard architecture.
I think they have standard architecture.
Maybe kind of like non-standard lighting, but standard architecture.
I think the deeper you go, the darker or bluer the lighting gets.
Right, because it was kind of orange and yellow highlights, I think, last week.
Let's just put it this way. The Fox parking lot is it just giveth and giveth and giveth. And they got a lot of mileage out of the Fox parking lot. I'm so glad you noticed that, because, it doesn't matter. And it's amazing. And it's so simple. But it was funny. You're right. It has to be the same architecture. So that totally worked.
Yeah, you got a Moclan, Black Ops Moclan detention facility or interrogation facility, and then you got a Moclan research facility. And if they like to make their halls kind of, octagonal or whatever that shape was, I don't know.
Who are we? Maybe it just works for them. So I think half of this conversation ends up on the other part of our podcast, where we get to the ethical and moral part of things. But Talia is deplorable, right? He says that. She is contemptible. She is beyond, in my opinion now, saving. There was a part of me that really, really was hoping that we could just see her do another turn and just
going back to nothing left on earth excepting fishes. I think we all wanted that, and she left and Only a Woman's playing, or More Than, whatever, Always a Woman by Billy Joel is playing. I think we had hope. Now I don't think we have so much hope. The
only hope we have, the real thing that Ed's fighting for, clearly, is Anaya, the daughter. But so you reminded me that I came across this on the internet, as one does, and when you pointed out that Talia was like the higher calling of, it is more important than familial bonds. I hate this person, but Dr. Phil, I was interviewing this guy who's a TikToker who got famous for licking toilets and ice cream and stuff. He's just a dumb kid. Literally licking toilets during COVID, and then licking ice cream and putting it back. This is how he got famous. And at first I'm like, this is a joke, right? This guy just knows that he's going on to Dr. Phil to be famous, more famouser. And he says to Dr. Phil, I don't talk to my family because they're not relevant. They don't have any followers. They don't have enough followers, and so I don't waste my time with them. And then the only credit I will give Dr. Phil, he says, well, I must be out of it because I only heard of you today, so it offended this kid so much. But it's not at all like what Talia is saying, but just to get it in your head that the familial bonds. There are times where you do need to cut familial bonds for your well-being and health.
Yeah.
But Talia's religious fanaticism and her ego and her own hubris has driven her past a point of redemption. And I'm bummed about that.
I am too, because I did think there was a point where, and I remember when we were doing the supplementals between season 2 and when we were done covering season 2 and before New Horizons came out, where we were like, are we shipping Ed and Kelly? Are we shipping Ed and Talia? What's who do we want to happen here? And now Talia sadly has definitely gone off the deep end, as we've seen people do over the last couple of years, whether that be family members or friends or other folks. But over the deep end, she has gone. Now, can she come back? I don't know if she will. But I think she could.
I think Ed hates her. He hates her. That doesn't mean he doesn't love her.
It doesn't mean they can't co-parent in a responsible way.
I don't think she wants to. I do give this show so much credit for really not always resolving things in a way that we want them to, especially with this episode. even the previews for what we were going to get, I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea. It was impossible for me to wrap my head around how they were even going to be able to resolve things with the Kaylon. So, like, it was just so cool to see them not only figure that out, but then give us another problem of, like they just really have a real unique knack for not wrapping things up in a bow, but still giving us, like, what is really potentially able to happen.
Kind of that short-term issue being solved, and kind of like that bigger, greater story arc, and also the character development too. And the way the power shifted between, now we have the Moclans and the Krill together, and potentially the Kaylon as being part of the Union, which does shift things. But I do want to point that out, because when I said Moclan, I started laughing because we were just starting to like Clyden, right? Like, weren't we just starting to like Clyden? And then, like, poor Fortis can't even penetrate the meat inside the shell.
Stop.
Their words, not mine. Their words. I didn't make up those words. Could not even properly penetrate the meat to Clyden's satisfaction, without just, I guess, for lack of a better term, emasculating him at the party.
Yes, I think this might be foreplay for them, though, because we also see some shirts coming off in the preview for the season finale, so we'll see. I have one more question before we move on to the next part of our show.
Have at it.
Ted Danson, how do you feel about it?
He has kind of reminded me from the beginning of his sort of his hardline, kind of hawkish stance, as kind of Admiral Marcus in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, a lot of people are drawing that.
And he's just sort of acted like that. Like, he's like, we got to do this. And who's going to do it? You, Captain Mercer. You, Commander Grayson. And he didn't go there, but he kind of always had that sort of vibe to him.
Sure.
In my mind. A little bit of Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men, a little bit of, like I said, Admiral Marcus. Is he right? Genocide. I don't think we condone genocide here on Mission Log the Orville.
And I didn't ask that.
Here in a little bit.
I asked R.I.P. Ted Danson. Did he get the right go? Did he get the right send off? Did you buy the heel turn?
I was surprised that it was. I think I was surprised, but not too surprised.
Shocked. Yeah.
That it was he who delivered the weapon. Then the second or third time I watched the show and I listened to his, distorted voice. I was like, boy, that does sound a lot like Ted Danson.
Right.
Distorted. That could just be my, imagination filling in the blanks, though.
Certainly.
But I think of him, Ozawa and Halsey, that it was going to be he who did that. And we talked at one time about, sort of the brand of the admirals, where, Danson, Admiral Perry was, kind of the war hawk. The, Victor Garber was the voice of reason always. And Tucker was just, played by the great Ron Canada, was just Admiral No. He would just tell everybody no. And he asked, what's Ozawa's brand? And I really didn't have an answer. And after this episode, I really don't have an answer either. She just kind of repeated what the other people said. Like, Danson was like, hey, so if you got more power, you can give this thing more range, right? And she was like, so what you're saying is if you give it more power, it'll have more range. I was like, well, thanks, Admiral Ozawa. Like that.
Yeah.
That was there were lines that were just spoken. And the same kind of thing at the end where they were talking about the, I think they were talking about their possible membership in the Union. She just sort of repeated other lines. So I'd like to see Kelly Hu get, more to do than that, because I think she's an amazing actor and, a strong character, but just sort of not, she was kind of just there to be there in this episode, sadly, right. I thought.
I can see that. I think we did get to see her do a couple of good things, including helping Kelly go to rescue the delegation. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. A little bit more definition in that character, it's not going to hurt us.
Right.
Especially when we did have clear cut, we know what Garber does, we know what Danson does, and it wouldn't be wrong to give her a little bit more to flesh out. What do you say we take a swift interlude and see each other on the other side?
I will interlude away and then reconvene.
Okay. we've come to the part of our show where we're going to explore the big ideas of the episode Domino and discuss the meanings, morals, and messages to see if it aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. What do you got for me, Mike?
Well, I think this was definitely a much more targeted episode than, what we've had the last couple of weeks that talked about so many different things. Like, we've talked about, very, very long lists of topics that were, explored, that we didn't even kind of get to have to. One of which was, From Unknown Graves, where we kind of did our wrap up. And I said, man, I had this list of, 20 bullet points. I don't even think we got to, 5 or 6 of them. But this one I think is much more targeted. A few lines I wanted to throw out there is I loved Admiral Halsey's line where he said, "We believe the quality of mercy is the mightiest in the mightiest." And
that really gave me pause in like an awesome way.
Yeah, and it reminded me of a line in a film that I saw a number of years ago where a guy was concerned about his daughter being out with people, and he said, "You shouldn't hang out with people like that. You could get hurt." And she said, "Strong guys don't hurt you, Dad. Weak ones do." And I just thought, wow, that was so good. And this is the same thing. Like if you really are, secure and strong and, have a strong sense of self, then, you would have that restraint. You can see that quality of mercy as being a strength, not a weakness. Whereas if you're insecure and trying to prove yourself and, have a Napoleonic complex or, some other diagnosed or undiagnosed issue, that would cause you to maybe try to overcompensate, then maybe those are the folks that don't maybe appreciate the quality of mercy the way others do.
I think that's a perfect way to put it and a really great way to give us the analogy in today's society. The weak man, never have I seen a more toxic person than the one who has the most to prove, right?
Right.
Or, they're more dangerous. That's so interesting. I also loved how he pulled the Napoleon quote out of his back pocket, right? Like a broken clock is right twice a day. And right. Napoleon was right that if you can get your enemy to submit without violence, then you've won the war, essentially. That was kind of... That
really was. I mean, so, a lesson learned there. He said, although he was a tyrant, he was right about that. Mm-hmm. So, also a good lesson that even though somebody might have some faults, like, aspiring to world domination, there still may be something you can learn from that individual, which they did in here. I liked the line where the group, it was Ed, Kelly, Isaac, and Charlie at least, and then you had the admirals on the other table, and they said, "How'd you accomplish this so fast?" And Ed said, "Well, to accomplish great things, you need 2 things, right? A plan and not enough time." And somebody said Churchill, and then Isaac said some composer.
LeVar Burton.
No, it wasn't LeVar Burton.
Although it has a Churchill vibe to it for sure.
Yeah. It was a composer.
I see. Okay.
But yes, I perfectly would have bought Churchill.
I wonder, out of the two, is Brannon or Andre Bormanis bringing a lot of those quotes, like pulling from source like that?
I don't know, and I'm also very curious as to this writing team, because every other show that we've seen, other than the ones written by this team, are a singular writing credit. Written by Seth MacFarlane, written by David A. Goodman, written by Joe Menosky. This is, and we did have one written by Joe Menosky. Right. I went back and looked the other day, and I kind of chuckled, because I looked at, anyway, regardless, I was looking at some old episodes. And I was like, oh no, wait. But a singular writing credit. Whereas this one, these 2 dudes always write together. So it's, right. I kind of wonder why that dynamic came up. And, clearly they've been working together for years, and the stories are really, really paying off. Whereas, I think I think an argument can be made that, episodes 8 and 9, Midnight Blue and Dominoes, are, the strongest of the season. And I don't know that everybody would feel that way. I don't know that I feel that way. I just feel like they are definitely two of the strongest.
I don't think I can disagree with you. I don't think I want to disagree with you. I tend not to look at things in that way. I tend to go, do I really like this season or do I not? But I think I think the way we looked at it early on, and I think it's holding true, we're ramping into something amazing. I think you're starting to see more excitement on the internet because they're doing such wonderful work. There's definitely it's almost like they kind of all knew that this was going to be an amazing season. They were all saying, too, there's going to be a barn burner, going to be a barn burner.
Well, like Seth said, he said when you look at shows that kind of find their footing, it's usually around season 3. I think that was a direct comparison to Next Gen.
Sure.
And he said we're going to look back at New Horizons as the year we swung for the fences. And they'd swing and hit it out of the park.
100%.
So far.
And a great point someone said on the internet is they gave us this episode and there's still one more. This very well could have been a season ender and there's still one more.
Yeah.
Which brings me to something where I think we're going to differ still.
What differ? I'll learn something from you. So present.
I think I'm still figuring out how I feel about it. A part of me hates myself for hating Charlie Burke as much as I did.
Right.
Or really not letting her be redemptive. But at the same time, she did have an arc. But do you think she actually became less bigoted? She actually... Or did you think she was spiteful up to the end? What do you think? I'm trying to give you an answer. I'm trying to put words in your mouth. Do you think she actually redeemed herself, besides sacrificing herself?
So there is a school of thought that says, regardless of what you think on the inside, it's your actions that count. So you can be bigoted, you can think that way, but as long as you treat everybody nicely and don't let that get the best of you, does it matter? It's sort of an interesting question. If you have these thoughts inside your brain, but you never act on them, does that make you a bad person or a good person? If you treat everybody equally and give people an honest chance, and you treat your coworkers, and if you're in a leadership role, promote people and encourage people, the right way to do it. Does it matter what your internal motivations are? It's just kind of a philosophical question. I'm
trying to absorb it because a part of me is actually bucking up against this as an idea. But go on.
So I feel like she came a long way when she was working with Isaac and Timmis. I really do. I don't know that she necessarily got all the way there, but I think she got a long way there. Even in this episode, when, the Admiral Perry was like, get to work on increasing the power of this thing so we can eradicate the Kaylon threat. And she was like, okay. And
right.
It's an Admiral, she's an ensign, I get it. But Ed was like, whoa, hey, time out. Aren't we being a little too cavalier? I mean, this is genocide we're talking about. So even at that point, she was very willing to commit the act of genocide, which, in some background quotation on this episode, Andre Bormana said it was the biggest episode they've explored to date on the show, right? It's the ultimate evil, and she was kind of willing to go right along with it when she was asked to increase the power of the weapon. Now, at the end of the day, if her sense of duty and her sense of just, right and wrong, sort of dictated her actions too, and follow her, the orders she was given, like she said, which was to, disable or retrieve the weapon. And the only thing that she could do was, disable, aka destroy it. Then that might have just been a sense of duty. And she may still have had a deep seated hatred for the Kaylon for killing her, for killing Amanda. the question I have is, was she all that interested in sacrificing herself, or did she just want to, try to be with, in some way, Amanda? And then you have to kind of think about her belief system and, how she would answer the mortality paradox question,
right.
and
right.
what, how she thinks things would look like after she dies. I honestly think that she was probably struggling with all those questions. She even asked him at the cabin, are we doing the right thing? You probably think I'm a terrible person for wanting to wipe all these Kaylon out. But I think at the end of the day, she did the right thing, and that's all we can really judge her on.
I think the impact is felt by primary one, whatever, due to the fact that he knows that she doesn't really like them, but still made that choice. I think it was more a reflection on our society as a whole that we do let the good win out ultimately. I don't know that I 100% love the philosophy of like, hey, you can be a bigot in your head, say all the slurs that you want in your head, and I'm hyperbolizing.
Yeah, in your head.
But I can't imagine that still not dictating a normal everyday person's actions. I will say this, however, something that someone helped me with a little bit ago was you're not your first thought. You're usually your second or your third thought. So the first thing that comes to your mind might be the conditioning, indoctrination, or lesson your parents taught you about X, Y, and Z, which I've been very honest about being raised, whether purposely or inadvertently, to have certain prejudices, which we all kind of can't really get away from. So there was a time where like I would be so sad that what my first thought would be, I go, am I that? I can't believe I'm thinking that. But the fact that I can go, wait, no, that's not true, because I've seen this X, Y, and Z. Someone helped me with a little bit of patience and said, it's the fact that you're getting to the second thought or the third thought is probably the real reflection of who you are. That's the really, core adult person.
That's really commendable, because as you said that, and I'd never heard that before, I think about often my first thought, and the first thoughts usually kind of take the easy way out. First thoughts kind of like nobody's looking. First thoughts kind of along those lines, and I don't think my actions ever reflect the first thought.
There you go.
And I'm not saying my first thought is to be, bigoted against, artificial life forms, but
it can run the gamut though of all sorts of things. So if the reason why I learned you are your second thought was I was feeling disappointment in myself when I was watching a lady in the crosswalk. And judging what she was wearing. I was judging that she didn't fit her like tube top well, or that she was, I know. But then I caught myself and I went, what does my opinion on what she's wearing matter whatsoever? She's probably fine. She's happy. She doesn't care what she looks like. And yet I'm over here judging. So I expressed, disdain for that thought to a friend. I was like, does that make me such a bad person? And she said, that second thought you had is who you are. The first thought is your conditioning. And so I don't know that I can 100% say with certainty what Charlie's first or second thought was. You know what I mean?
Right.
I will say this. I'm sure some people clock this right at the top with her introduction. I didn't realize that her whole destiny was to die. But it makes sense because her partner died, or someone that she wanted to be her partner died. I should have seen it coming sooner. I didn't. It was a really shocking moment. Surprising, especially after killing Admiral Danson. And I do regret a little bit for my dislike of the character, but at the same time, she wasn't perfect. She wasn't afraid to voice her opinions, and she died doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, she was very capable. She was very smart. She was
Yeah,
maybe
it's not a reflection on her skills at all.
Yeah, no, it just maybe somewhat. When I look back at me at that age, thinking I knew everything, thinking I was smarter than folks that had been around the block a lot more than I had been, thinking that I knew more than people that were in my field for, 20, 30 years, and that I could somehow either talk down to them or maybe that my opinion mattered more. I thought my opinion mattered more than it did.
Nothing's worse than a 19-year-old. Nothing.
Yeah, I saw a lot of, my younger self in Charlie Burke at different times during the season. And again, I don't know where, what her first or second thought was, but, at the end of the day, she did sacrifice herself to save, honestly, to save a war. Mm-hmm. And I think that means a lot. So still, if I go back and rewatch this season, and I'm sure I will, I'm probably not going to like her anymore in episodes 1 through 7 or so. But after that, I think there's a lot of sympathy to be gained, and the fact that knowing that where her arc ends, I think will go a long way to make me judge her a little less than maybe I did early on in this season.
I wasn't my first thought of Charlie Burke. I'd like to believe I'm my second thought. I guess I just don't want to be the kind of person who's like, oh, you know what? She's great. And like walk back my initial disdain for the character. But I kind of really... keeping that into consideration, what an awesome, successful job they have done with the show to get us to have strong feelings about a character, whether they're good or bad.
Right.
They really got us all to be like, well, damn. We all have an opinion on a character. That's really impactful storytelling.
It really is. And it kind of, to a lesser extent, it kind of makes me wonder what I think of Gordon Malloy, too. Because he was always kind of like right there on the Charlie train with, starting with Electric Sheep, when he was like, you know what? You're right. A lot of people feel the same way. And even in this episode, when they were chatting about the pros and cons of genocide in the mess hall, he was like, you know what? She's not wrong. And,
is he just trying to get laid?
Well, I don't know, but, I will say this, and this goes back to my early days with the airline, is that, they often say that 25 goes into 50 a lot better than 50 goes into 25. So whoa. I think if Gordon was just trying to do that, he was probably wasting his time.
That sounds like a phrase I'll never get a handle on, which is 6 of a dozen and half a dozen. Like, I can never get that phrase.
6 of one, half dozen of the other?
Exactly. I know it's not exactly what you mean, but that's another one I'm going to try and put in my pocket and remember.
Yeah, so, 25 goes into 50 better than 50 goes into 25.
Try that, math people. I don't do math. So I think... the one other thing I think we can I want to remark on before we move on into the way we end this show normally is the send off for the character, including Isaac's eulogy / speaking, was just gorgeous.
It really was. And again, just going back to Mark and what he does, what he can do with that character. But yeah, I mean, I went back and, for the recap, which, I tried to kind of make our hour-and-a-half episode recap the same length as a 45-minute recap. But I did specifically, jump into that. Charlie substantiated her true nature, one of integrity and sacrifice. And in her sacrifice, she inspired the enemies of the Union to become friends. Her existence was brief, but much like the first domino in succession, her impact will be felt far into the future. That was just so well written. Very gorgeous. And it made the name Domino, that otherwise elicits pizza when said, and Fats totally Domino. Worth it. Yeah, exactly. Well, just to be fair, what's the first thing you're thinking? It's Domino's, just to be fair. Ooh, I wonder why Domino's calls themselves Domino's.
I don't want to. I don't know that I care, but now I want to know.
If anybody knows, hit us up on Twitter.
Yeah, we're asking the tough questions here. So, what if at all does this show, if not could be potentially Star Trek Roddenberry philosophizing thesis?
I mean, just genocide is bad. You know, I mean,
Oh my God, that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a like they said, that was probably one of the bigger issues that they've explored. But Star Trek did a genocide episode in the original series with the characters where some of them were white on the right side, all of them were white on the right side.
But Mike,
my people are black on the right side.
But Mike, Star Trek's never been political up until now.
No, it's I don't know when it got all political. I don't know when it got representative. I don't know when it got inclusive. When it got progressive. I don't know. It just probably Alex Kurtzman brought all of those things.
You know what I do love? This echo chamber that you and I provide for each other. Just love hearing my ideas bounce right back to me.
But there was a lot of the original series that was sort of very kind of pro-America at the time. Like by
it was a huge value of Americans at the time.
Yeah, so at the time people say what's the point of Star Trek, and they're like, it's better to be human, and it's than a machine or an alien or somebody who can't think. It's better to have that sense of morality that that humans have, that maybe in many ways early Star Trek kind of held up Spock as being flawed because he didn't have that hunch, he didn't have that emotion, he didn't have that extra something that made him a great leader like Kirk was. Look at Galileo 7, where Spock just failed horribly until he did the one irrational thing, which is jettison the fuel and light it on fire, because he just tried to lead by logic and not
I remember that episode.
Anything else. So they were like, it's better to be human, and by human we mean American, and by American we mean kind of patriotic and almost sort of towards the right on the political scale. There was a lot of that in the original series. It was
but also was less than what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah. So when things were said like we call it freedom and you're going to enjoy it a lot, that was very much kind of the America at the time, which, believe it or not, was much more less to the right than it is now. Like I have been compared to, as liberal as our, one listener thinks that I am, it's pointed out to me time and time again that I'm more of, what would have been a conservative probably in the Eisenhower administration, or even, I'll go back that far. That's it. But it really has been. So the country has moved further and further right. So what was being espoused as maybe conservative in the 60s was more, is probably considered much more left now than it was then.
Right. And it's not a new concept also, to be fair, and say that neoliberalism is also dangerous as well. No one eats each other better than the lefts against the lefts. I think I just caution hearing something, even when I see something that I don't agree with, I have to exercise better control in order to try to understand where someone's coming from.
Right.
It's not easy.
And I had a conversation with a good friend of mine. This is going back to probably 2014. And, we were flying together, a 3-day trip. And at one point he said, like, man, you're judgy. And I was like, you think? And he goes, yeah. And, I took the personality test. What is it? Myers-Briggs?
Yeah, sure.
Is that it? And the NTSJ thing. And, I came out where I found out where I came out on it. And it was, I kind of liked where it was. I had a guardian personality. I try to kind of protect and support other people, and defend them, which I was proud of. But I did sort of see what he meant when I kind of dug into that. So now my while that may be my first instinct, I do very much try to control that and think of, okay, why am I judging this individual? And like you said, it's, probably more likely than not conditioning.
It probably is, but I've seen you be a great example. I know it's primarily because you respect me. I know that you don't walk into a situation disrespecting others, but I've seen you, and you've inspired me to just go, I can learn. I can see why I don't agree with this. Yeah, anytime we don't see eye to eye, I don't think we're just getting along for the sake of the podcast. I think
no, people want us to fight.
I know. You know what? Maybe next episode.
But that was about the time in my life when I was like, okay, this is a fork in the road, and I can either solidify my views and stop evolving, or I can try hard to keep evolving. And that was, sort of, kind of the beginning of my, I'll say next act. I'm not sure if it was second, third, or last, or maybe even my encore. I don't know, but it was kind of a moment, a watershed moment in my life.
There are, life is made up of a couple small moments just like that, where, like, even a friend of mine today said, wow, you bring up this one specific event a lot. And I do, because I changed a lot because of that moment. And it was a drop in the bucket, but that person saying that one thing to you impacted you enough to set you on a new course. Yeah,
kind of help me re-examine some tendencies that I didn't know I had.
And that could also just be their view as to whether it's negative or not. But I do think some healthy awareness around who we are. And even the Myers-Briggs test is deeply flawed and apparently has roots in racism. And it's got, I know. But even with astrology, I don't know that I'm a Taurus and I'm this way. But if I read something and it helps me to understand myself better, all the better, know. So I think that's the big takeaway there. So yeah, I think you're right. Genocide is bad.
And the other thing I want to talk about this, and this was just such a perfect other side of the coin from last week's episode, because last week I went on my lecture of the needs of the many and the needs of the one crowd versus the needs of the one outweighing the needs of the many, and look at everybody in the planet, every delegate that stood up at the Planetary Union and the council chambers were putting their security and their well-being at risk to save Topa and to kick the Moclans out, because the needs of the one, the needs of that individual person, outweighed the security and the well-being of the many. This episode was Charlie Burke sacrificing herself because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, and you can't really have one without the other, and it all depends on who's doing the sacrificing, right? It just depends. Throwing somebody overboard because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one is not cool, but it all depends on that. So I love the fact that we had one great episode that was one side of that coin and another great episode that was the other side of that coin, because I really do think that both of those are equally important based on the situation.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you flipped the coin on the bed. I think that's it, Mike.
Okay, good deal. Mission Log the Orville is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production by our friend Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcasts.roddenberry.com. If you're watching the live premiere on YouTube right now, join us on the Mission Log Discord as soon as it ends to continue the conversation. If you don't have access, go to patreon.com/missionlog and join for as little as $1 per month.
Join us next time on Mission Log the Orville as we discuss the Season 3 finale, Future Unknown, and how apt is that name. This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.